He conquered the world before the age of 33, but lost himself in the unknown within. You think you know Alexander the Great? Well, you think again. This isn't just a tale of conquest and chariots and empires. It's a story of personas and the shadows that came with them. He was more than just a king. He was a gladiator, a dreamcaster, a sovereign, and a luminary. The power doesn't come without a price, and Alexander paid it in loyalty and in legacy and insanity. As he grew his empire, well, he grew his inner war. But between vision and obsession, and between wisdom and control, between divine purpose and the void. In this episode of Mystic Personas, we're going to unravel the boy who dreamed of uniting the world, but became the man haunted by it. So hit that like button and subscribe and journey with us into the mind of a legend. Not through history books, but through the soul. Long before Alexander the Great, he was simply just the son of a king. He boy grew up with the weight of destiny, and his father, Philip II of Macedonia, had carved out an empire through ruthlessness and brilliance. But Alexander, no way. He wasn't content to just inherit power. He wanted to eclipse it. He was educated by Aristotle. He had trained with the warriors. He was stirred by myth. Alexander absorbed both philosophy and warfare like breath and blood. Well, he was a gladiator, and in his prime, commanding, sharp, and charismatic, thriving on discipline and dominance, but his hunger was never just for victory. It was for meaning. Beneath the armor pulsed, a heart of the Dreamcaster. It was a visionary weaving a world, of cultures united, east and west, fused, language, law, gods intermingled in a way that never before been imagined. He saw himself as a bridge, not as a blade, but this fire, this need to move, to seek, to push. Well, that was the nomad persona in him. Restless and curious. Was never satisfied with what, always just could be chasing could be. You see, he was never satisfied with what was. He was always chasing what could be. And that is where his shadows begin to gather. You see, shadows emerging like the striver came first. The voice that never let him rest. They still compare you to your father, prove them wrong, conquer faster, bigger, further. He chased approval from ghosts until victory became insufficient. And then he became the Marauder, the gladiator's corrupted twin. It wasn't about uniting anymore. It became about consuming. Every city not under his control felt like an insult. Every rebellion a personal offense. The Dreamcaster's vision was still there, but it was being weaponized. And behind it all, began to drift into the persona wanderer, the shadow of the nomad. Whispering to keep moving, keep conquering, because if you stop, you have to face yourself. And maybe there's no home for a man who becomes a myth. Here's a reflection. Alexander didn't just want to rule land. He wanted to redefine life, to prove something eternal in a world that forgets its heroes far too fast. But when your identity is built on motion and glory and proving, you risk becoming a prisoner in your own pursuit. And a gladiator who leads armies is the Dreamcaster who builds visions. The nomad discovers new worlds, but in their shadows, they consume from within. And in the young prince, barely 20 years old, they had already begun to rise. At 20, Alexander becomes king. By 30, he rules the largest empire the world has ever seen. Persia falls, Egypt names him a god, Babylon opens its gates. And Alexander, he does not want to wear the crown. He wants to redefine it. This is the rise of the ascendant sovereign, a leader whose authority is not just military, but it's spiritual. He begins to believe he is chosen, not by blood, but by fate itself. His rule is mythical. His name is already a legend. And as the persona virtuoso, he is more than a conqueror. He is a cultural architect. He studies languages, founds cities. He sees art and philosophy and battle as threads of the same grand tapestry. He doesn't just build an empire, he literally curates civilization. But through it all, his persona valorous in him still burns, and he leads from the front. He sleeps among his men, he mourns the death like a brother, not a king, and even in glory, His loyalty remains fiercely human. But power is a double-edged sword, isn't it? And the persona overlord begins to whisper, they'll betray you. Control them. Better watch them. Rule harder. Alexander tightens his grip on not just his generals, but on truth itself. Where once there was trust, now is suspicion. He begins to execute former allies, and paranoia creeps in from behind the laurels. The persona hollow flame flickers beneath the surface. His fire, once fueled by purpose, now runs on ambition and exhaustion. He pushes further, pushes faster, deeper into foreign lands. Not because he must, because he doesn't know how to stop. He can no longer hear the voices of his own men, only the echo of his own myth. And then the persona bastion takes root. The protective guardian becomes a fortress. Emotion is weakness. Vulnerability is danger. He closes off, and even those who are closest to him, they just begin to fear the man that once impressed him. Here's a reflection. This is the paradox of greatness. The higher you rise, the more isolated you become. Alexander lived at the intersection of vision and domination. He began as the sovereign of unity, but as the shadows of control and exhaustion and pride threatened to turn that unity into submission, his persona no longer shaped the empire. The empire began shaping him. The same crown that lifted him up now weighed down like iron on his soul. And by the time Alexander reaches just 30, the world has already crowned him eternal. But victory, once intoxicating, begins to lose its flavor. He no longer dreams of battles, he dreams of eternity, of world stitched together beneath one rule, one language, one light. His. India's not enough. Arabia, not enough. He speaks of sailing beyond the ocean's edge, and not for territory, but for transcendence. He becomes the persona omniseer, the seer king, trying to hold the whole world in his mind, studying the stars, the sacred text, God's foreign and familiar. He's no longer just building an empire, he's building a mythos, and becomes, well, the persona, the insight weaver. He gathers philosophies and cultures and symbols and attempting to synthesize them into a singular vision of unity and immortality. He believes that if he can just understand enough, he can hold the world together. He steps into the persona luminary, a being of brilliance, charisma, and radiance. And the light, well, is unstable. The shadows arrive, but they do it silently. You see, the persona obscura clouds his thoughts. It's the vision that becomes so wide that clarity literally disappears. He overthinks, delays, obsesses. Insights spiral into indecision and contradiction. The persona dream wisp haunts his nights. Grand visions too vast to be held. Ambitions with no foundation. Ideas with no structure, and purpose without peace. And then Void Regent takes the throne within. A ruler whose heart is sealed behind the walls of power, worshipped, feared, but is untouched. He is surrounded by wealth and praise and ceremony, yet more alone than ever before. His men grow restless and they want to return home, and he absolutely refuses. They mutiny. His body, once sculpted by war, begins to betray him. He drinks too much, health fades, some say poison, others fever. But perhaps, well, he was just simply consumed from within. So here's a reflection. Alexander dreamed of becoming divine, and in chasing godhood, and he really kind of lost the man, right? And he forgot that what the luminary persona teaches from within, that brilliance unanchored becomes, well, a flicker, right? That vision without connection becomes a mirage, and that power without vulnerability becomes a prison. He reached the summit of the known world at 30, only to find out, well, there's no companions at the top. So here's the final reflection. Alexander's greatness didn't live solely in his conquest. It lived in the personas he carried, and the shadows he could never quite escape. He was a warrior, no doubt. A dreamer, absolutely. A sovereign, without question. A seeker, forever. And in time, a tyrant, lost in the echo of his own myth. And that teaches us that even the brightest light casts the longest shadow. And so we ask you, which part of Alexander lives in you? And which shadow do you still try to conquer every day? Alexander's story reminds us greatness isn't just built on victories. It's built on how we carry personas and whether we face the shadows they leave behind. You see, if this journey stirred something in you, I'm sure it did. If you saw yourself as the warrior or the dreamer or even the tyrant, don't just watch history. Reflect through it. So like this video, subscribe to this channel, become a member as well. Drop a comment below. Which mystic persona did you feel the most you related to in Alexander? And which shadow? Are you ready to face it? This has been Mystic Personas, and guess what? We're just getting started.